Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone. Today, I'm going to be talking about, as you saw maybe in the title, about AP Overmatch, specifically AP Overmatch in WoWs. We're going to talk about how does it work, how to calculate it, and how to remember in a game whilst you're playing in mostly cruisers, how to remember what overmatches you and what you have to deal with, etc. This was a suggested topic in the past, especially on Twitch. A lot of people ask, how do you know if he's gonna overmatch you? How do you know if you have to angle to that thing? How do you know if you don't care about his gun caliber and stuff? So we're gonna be talking about these things in this video. But yeah, so let's start off with what does overmatch mean for AP? Well, we're going to be talking about overmatch in where you're going to be, for example, playing Yamato. And as we know, Yamato has a big caliber gun, 460 millimeters. And it's going to shoot at something maybe quite low armored or up to 32. I'm going to give you the digits in just a bit, but let's say you shoot your guns in Yamato at someone with 32 millimeter armor. You're going to be going straight through his nose or straight through his armor, even if he's slightly angled. He can angle all he wants, but the 32 millimeters you are going to pen. The reason for this is your gun caliber is high enough in where it doesn't care about the angle of the target. Now, of course, this is gonna be the same for anything under 32 millimeters of armor. So Yamato is going to pen anything under 32 millimeters of armor straight, even if they angle, etc. Now, how do we calculate overmatch? So in World of Warships, to calculate your overmatch characteristics, you're going to go on your gun caliber. So in the case of Yamato, you're going to do 460. So let me get my calculator out. We're going to do 460. One second, let me find my calculator. So you're going to do 460, and you're going to divide that by 14.3. The number you have to divide the gun caliber is 14.3, and the number you're gonna get is 32.167. But let's forget the decimals, so it's going to be 32. Basically, you're gonna have enough pen to overmatch 32 millimeters of armor, but you're not gonna have enough pen to penetrate 33 millimeters of armor. So in this case, anything under 32 millimeters of armor, you can penetrate. Let's go take a look at our Montana, for example, which, of course, as we know, has a lower caliber gun at 406. So if we do 406 divided by 14.3, we're going to get a number of 28.39. Now, in this game, there's pretty much nothing at 28 millimeters armor that's actually effective armor. In this game, we mostly find 27 millimeters of armor and then 30. So what does this mean in this case? Montana is going to be able to overmatch things which have 27 millimeters of armor and less, but it won't be able to overmatch anything with 30 millimeters of armor or more. So that should be relatively easy to understand. I'm going to try use two more cases for you just to make sure you know. So let's go take a look at something with 457 millimeter guns. Let's take a look at recently added St. Vincent. And we're going to do 457 millimeters divided by 14.3. And you're going to get a number of 31.95. Now, you're like, oh my god, it's so close to overmatching 32 millimeters of armor. Well, you are right. It is quite close to overmatching 32 millimeters of armor, but it doesn't overmatch 32 millimeters of armor, because to overmatch 32 millimeters of armor, you need 458 millimeter caliber guns. Now, you are 1 millimeter short, but it is what it is. So you're only going to be able to overmatch 31, which in this case, even though you might not overmatch the majority of battleships, you do overmatch the majority of cruisers, especially, for example, Des Moines, who has its deck armor covered in 30 and its side armor covered in 30. You're going to go straight through that. And this is relevant for any battleship from Republic to 457. And one more battleship I want to show you is, for example, a Bourgogne. Bourgogne, we have a 380 millimeter caliber gun. We're going to divide that by 14.3, and we're going to get the equals here. Boom, 26.57, which means you don't have enough overmatch to pen 27 millimeters of armor when it's angled, but you do have enough penetration to pen 25 millimeters of armor. So it's enough for you to pen the 25 millimeter threshold, which is quite good. So pretty decent there in that regard. That's how to calculate overmatch. Now, I'm going to try to show you a practical example of overmatch, not just explaining it theoretically, but I wanted to show you a practical example. So I'll load up a training room in, for example, a Montana, and then I'll put in a bot Des Moines, and I can showcase the overmatch characteristic. Alright, so here we are in a training room against some Des Moines and Minotaurs. So first I will start off with the Des Moines. So we have, like we said, 406 millimeter caliber guns, and so we're gonna divide by 14.3. We get around like something like 29 or something, or 28. I think it was like 28. So if we shoot the nose of the Des Moines, for example, and we wait for the shells to land, if possible, in that area, you can overmatch the Des Moines nose. So as you see, we're gonna get 3 pens. So pretty easily, of course, 27 millimeter armor here. I'll try to show the armor scheme on the left here so you can see. But yeah, 27 millimeters of armor on the nose, so pretty easily overmatched. But if we shoot the side of the Des Moines, and as long as they do hit in terms of the dispersion, well, I hit the aft there, which is also 27, so that's pennable. My goal is to try hit the side here so I can showcase this. There you go. You get 2 bounces, for example, in this case. So it's because we're shooting the 30... Now, that's actually shot my back turret, so that's going to be a pretty decent angle. But as you can see, if I only use my front turrets, you get bounces instead of the actual, well, pens themselves from the overmatch, because you don't have overmatch on the side. I wish my dispersion would allow me to do it, but it is what it is. I wish I could get some good dispersion against these AFK Des Moines. But yeah, so as we talked about, if you shoot the nose, you will get pens. If you shoot the side, as if it's angled, by the way, you will get bounces. Of course, compared to Minotaur, for example, a ship who only is covered with 16 millimeter armor, except for the belt, you will pretty much pen the entire thing, no matter where you shoot it. So if we shoot it there, for example, and shoot it on the nose, and, well, if you hit, of course, clueless, but you get what I mean. And this is for the 406 millimeter caliber gun. Now, of course, if the Des Moines is caught broadside like this, you can, of course, shoot it in the side, and you will still get citadels, obviously, even though you don't overmatch that because of the angle, right? It all depends on the angle of the target. But all we're talking about here is overmatch and not the actual pennable like angle of the target. So keep this in mind. This was a Montana. Alright, so here we are with the Ohio this time. This one has a 457 millimeter caliber gun. And here is the same Des Moines from earlier, our experiment Des Moines. So we're going to shoot his nose again. And, well, over pen, but it does get the pen, of course, because you do overmatch 27 with this one. But if you shoot the side as well, as long as it's not low enough where you're going to hit the belt, you're going to get, again, pens here. Whilst on Montana, for example, we ended up getting bounces, remember. So this has nothing to do with penetration amount, penetration value, because, of course, your pen value could be like, I don't know, I'm just going to use a random number. It could be 500 or 400 millimeters of armor, but that still doesn't mean, that doesn't have anything to do with the overmatch in terms of this case. That's just how much, like, armor, if it was flat, you could go through. Of course, when you angle the armor, it will get thicker and thicker, etc. So just keep in mind, don't get penetration value confused with overmatch. They're a bit different, okay? But maybe that's a video for another day. So, of course, against the Minotaur as well, you just overmatch it pretty much everywhere. Now, that's pretty much it for the training room example, but let's go back to the port. Alright, so here we are back in the port. So basically, we learned how to calculate overmatch, what it is, and practical examples of 2 cases. I didn't want to go over those because, of course, I could keep showing you infinite cases of how other ships can overmatch other ships, etc. But I just wanted to use 2 practical examples there. In terms of all types of overmatch, it's all about calculations and stuff, mathematics, etc. divided by 14.3. But really and truly, I'm just going to show you this sheet here that I got from the World of Warships wiki. You can find this easily by typing AP Overmatch in World of Warships. I'm just going to show you this. And you can pause the video, just read it all if you want. I wouldn't really recommend you to read it all, but there are some numbers maybe you should remember, especially when playing particular ships. So let's say, the thing is, you can look at this whole chart, right? And say, oh, I need to remember all of them. But not really. What I personally do, I think this comes over time, of course. I've been playing the game for 7 years, so I feel like maybe over time, especially since I've played competitive and stuff, you need to know these things on the top of your head. You need to know what overmatches you know, etc. And how to angle, etc. if the thing doesn't overmatch you. So let me take the situation, for example, you're at Des Moines, right? So you're at Des Moines, and you have, as we talked about, 27 millimeters of armor plating on the nose. So what are you gonna do basically against a Montana? Well, against a Montana, you need to try to bait his shells into your side by not giving too much broadside, of course. Try to bait it into your side plate where he'll bounce. Try to not get hit in the nose. Try to not get hit in the aft. Now, of course, when he's close range, it's gonna be super hard. But at further ranges, it's gonna be relatively easy, because even with plunging fire, they'll probably hit your deck. As long as they don't hit your aft or your nose, you're gonna be mostly okay. Unless also you're broadside. Keep that in mind. Try to not go broadside ever. I think that would be the ultimate goal. But anyway, let's take a look at, for example, Des Moines here. So the minimum AP shell caliber to overmatch 27 millimeters of armor, in the case of the wiki it says, is 387, but in reality the smallest gun caliber you can actually have is 406. So if you have 406 millimeter guns, you're gonna be able to overmatch 27. I say 406 because there's nothing between 387 to 305 in this game. The first gun caliber which overmatched 27 in this game, at least till now, is the actual 406 millimeter guns. So anyway, so 406 is the starting threshold of the overmatch. What about your 30 millimeters? Where does the 30 millimeter overmatch start? In this game, you can start getting overmatched at 30 millimeters, in this case, by 430 millimeter guns. What does that mean? It means in this game, really and truly, Republic is the first ship that can actually overmatch 30 millimeters. Republic is the smallest gun caliber that has that ability because it has 431 millimeter caliber guns, which means at 431 millimeters, you're gonna get overmatched with 30 millimeters of armor. The gun, you know, you're gonna, no matter the angle, the shell is gonna go inside you, and it's gonna either pen you or over pen you, whatever. But it's going to go in for sure. It won't end up in a bounce, basically. This will go up till the highest caliber in the game and beyond, because the higher caliber you have, you can of course overmatch that armor and more. So Yamato, for example, doesn't have any issues in overmatching Des Moines 30 millimeter side armor or nose armor, etc. Or Incomparable, for example, which, you know, has even higher gun caliber, right? They won't have any issue with overmatching you. Another practical case I want to showcase is the Goliath. The reason I want to showcase Goliath here is because it is the first cruiser that has this AP overmatch mechanic in the game, at least at tier 10, when shooting at tier 10s, because your minimum armor plating at tier 10 in terms of the actual hull armor is Minotaur, and of course super light cruisers, which is 16. You're gonna find this on the Minotaurs and stuff, so 16. And for 16, it gets overmatched, as you can see by the sheet here. 229 millimeters, the first gun caliber which can overmatch you, which means a ship like Moskva cannot overmatch Minotaur. This has been a popular misconception, especially in my chat on my stream and other streams I've seen in the chat. When streamers are playing Moskva, they're shooting Minotaurs that are angled, and the streamers like me is shooting HE because it's an angled Minotaur, very angled. For example, let's say it's angled like this. I'm shooting HE at it. People are like, oh, shoot AP at Minotaur because you overmatch it. No, you don't. Moskva has 220 millimeter guns, which means he will bounce you. But The first caliber that will overmatch you in your Minotaur is, as you can see, for the actual ship at tier 10, is Goliath. The reason for this is it has the closest to 229. It has 234 millimeters. So anything above that 234 millimeters caliber gun can overmatch Minotaur, Colbert, Smolensk, etc. Which means, for example, Stalingrad, who has 305 millimeter guns, Henry IV, which has 240 millimeter guns, Howden Leu, which has 283 millimeter guns. I know this is a lot of numbers, guys. This is a lot of numbers. But they can all overmatch Minotaur. Even Napoli can, for example. That's pretty much it for that case, for the cruiser case, because I wanted to talk about where kind of the overmatch starts at tier 10 in terms of like hull armors. That's pretty much it. And now the question you might be having is, how do you know in-game, how did you get to know in-game what overmatches you? This is really a trait that comes over time. It's not really that hard, guys, to remember. If you really and truly just take a look at the sheet and try to understand this, okay? So if you're playing the Moin, this is how I try to remember it super easily, okay? Let's say you're playing the Moin. You have 27 millimeters of armor, and you have 30 millimeters in the middle. But forget your 30 millimeters for a second. Always look at your lowest, right? Let's look at the lowest. So it's 27. Forget the superstructures, by the way. Obviously that's 16. But I'm talking about the hull, which is the most important part because that's where the citadel is. So you have 25, right? Sorry, 27 millimeter nose armor. So I'm gonna put in my head, okay, what can overmatch me? What's the first gun caliber? We talked about it before. It's Montana. Anything under Montana cannot overmatch me in WoWs. That means Bourgogne, Mecklenburg, they can't overmatch me. They can't. So 380s and below, they can't. Or 387 to be fair, but in the game context, 381 or below, they can't overmatch me. So when I'm in a fight with a Bourgogne, I don't care. I can just sit. Obviously, he can load HE, guys. Obviously, he can load HE, but this video is dedicated to the AP. So I can just sit there and pretty much just chill. And if he shoots AP at me, I'm gonna be chilling. He's not gonna do any damage as long as I'm not showing enough angle where he can go through my cheek and into my citadel. Of course, that's pretty much it, of course. But then where do you start getting overmatched? Like we talked about, it's Montana. That means when I start playing against Montanas, I need to start maneuvering, playing better. I need to change angle as much as possible, change speeds, try to, you know, do that type of thing. And then when it comes to 30 millimeter overmatch, as we talked about before, that starts at Republic. So Republic and over. You're like, okay, he can overmatch me everywhere. How do I deal with this? The best way to deal with it is either hiding behind an island, or sitting at very long range where you can actually have enough time to dodge the shell whilst you're seeing it visually. That's pretty much it, really. So the thing to keep in mind is what I would do if I were you. The only thing you really have to remember are these two things. The armor of the hull of the ship you're playing. For example, let's play you're a Des Moines player. You have to learn your 27, 30, and 27. There's two numbers to remember. There's two numbers to remember. It's 27 and 30. It really shouldn't be that hard to remember. It's 27 and 30 for Des Moines. Now, obviously, take a look at every cruiser you play, or the majority of the cruiser you play. Let's say you play one cruiser. Just take a look at it. It's important. So for Worcester, it's 25 and 30, right? Ignore your armor belt here, because, I mean, it's well armored. Nothing will overmatch it most of the time. But in this case, just take a look at your nose armor, side armor, and deck armor. So in terms of Worcester, it's 25 and 30. Those are the two numbers. In terms of Des Moines, it's 27 and 30. In terms of a ship like Puerto Rico, for example, it's 27, 30, and 38, etc. These, I mean, the majority of the time, you only have to remember 3 numbers. Don't think there's a ship in the game where you have to remember 4 numbers. It's pretty much 3 numbers. Here, for example, Stalingrad, you have 25 and 50. 25 and 50, right? So it's always 2 numbers. Always remember that armor. That's the first thing. So first thing is remember your ship's armor, at least the external part. The next thing you have to remember, the thing I like to do in randoms is when I load in straight into the game, I look at the enemy battleships and say, hey, what overmatches me? By that, like, let's say there's a Vermont, Yamato, Montana, Bourgogne on the enemy team, and I'm playing Des Moines, right? So I know that, for example, only some of them will overmatch me everywhere. So the Bourgogne won't overmatch me everywhere, so I can chill. If I'm on a flank with a Bourgogne, that's okay. If I'm on a flank with Montana, well, okay, I have to angle to it. Relatively 27mm armor, he overmatches me there. I have to be a bit cautious, but I can use my middle deck armor and stuff and middle side armor and stuff to angle. And then when it comes to the Yamato, Vermont, in that regard, yes, you do have to be extra cautious when fighting them. That's how I like to remember it, is I know I should know the gun calibers of every ship in at least at tier 10 well, I know all the gun calibers at tier 10 of every ship, but maybe some of you don't remember that much. Just remember the battleship's gun caliber for the most part, and remember the cruiser's armor, the one you're playing. I think if you know both of those things, you should have a relatively easy time. And then over time, if you want to learn more, you can write them down, and then you can, you know, I wouldn't say revise them, because that wouldn't make the game fun. You're not meant to be studying, but if you have that ability and you want to have some, you know, more knowledge in the game, you want to write them down and maybe look at them now and then. Someone asked me if I do keep a list all the time to my right hand side, so I know, no, I don't. I mean, there's a list on the wiki if you always want to look at it. I'll bring it up again. This is the list. You can take a picture of it, etc. And maybe just look at it now and then and say, okay, how does Overmatch work? You know, this is how, and etc. 14.3. I'll try to leave a link of this in the description below. And that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, I don't know if I did a decent job at explaining. I don't know if the video is really long or not. Maybe. But basically, what you have to remember is, and I'll read this from the wiki, because the wiki does do a pretty good job of explaining it, is an AP shell whose diameter is greater than 14.3 times the thickness of an armor plate will overmatch and pass through it regardless of angle. And then it shows you, here are some thresholds where this occurs, etc. Can you bow tank with this ship, etc. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any further questions, maybe you want to ask me what overmatches my ship, I have 25mm armor or something. You can either look at this sheet, which is, in my opinion, the easiest thing you can do, or you can just ask the question in the comments. If you would like another explainer video, maybe something in the game, maybe a mechanic that you just don't understand, or maybe you know a lot of people don't understand, I can totally make a video on it in the future. Let me know what you thought of this one. I don't think I've ever done a video like this before. So yeah, do let me know what you thought, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, do leave a like and a comment, and maybe subscribe to the channel, because I would greatly appreciate it, guys. But that's pretty much it. I will see you in the next video. Big fan.